Welcome to Canvas of the Heart, presented by Free Arts for Abused Children of Arizona. The mission of Free Arts is to transform children's trauma to resilience through the arts. This show is a collection of conversations that spotlight the ways Free Arts creates hope for children and teens who've experienced abuse, neglect, or homelessness. We hope you find this show to be informative, inspiring, and fun. All right, so we're here for Symposium Hype, right? Inspiring creativity and mentoring is our theme. And we have two guests that are representing two of the agencies that are helping us to promote this, to plan it, and to offer it to the community. And so joining us today on Canvas of the Heart, we have Kara Kiggins from Gabriel's Angels and Eva Seiler from Big Brothers Big Sisters. And so what do we all have in common? We all have some element where we are using relationship, right? Dressed up, that sounds like mentoring. But at the end, we're using relationship to better the lives of one another. And so in the way that we've come together, it has helped us realize the value of mentorship, the value of coordination. And so when we think about Symposium Hype, we want to hear about today what your unique agencies and you all are bringing to the symposium. And so we'd like to do that first by just understanding a bit more about your background. And Eva, I'd like to start with you. And you could just tell us about yourself and what brought you to Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Yes, so my name is Eva. My pronouns are no nouns. So essentially that just means that I'm Eva. And my gender is like the least of my worries. So my journey on, how much time do we have? It's a long journey.
Okay.
So, I'm Mexican-American, and we grew up in poverty. And as a family of immigrants, we recognize the importance of, community engagement, reaching out for support, and mentorship. One of the earliest memories I had around 7 or 8 years old was a church member taking the kids out to the movies and kind of opened my lens of what else is out there. So that led me to just, exploring myself more, exploring sexuality and gender. Started volunteering for 1 in 10, which is a local youth serving organization here in the Valley, LGBTQ. And then Big Brothers Big Sisters at that time was starting to do their LGBTQ initiative. And they invited local LGBTQ organizations at a roundtable to ask the question, how can we serve the community more or be more effective? And so I was a part of that roundtable and then started working for Big Brothers Big Sisters in 2018. And then here I am.
Excellent. Yeah, we're glad you're here. And it's awesome to hear about the work and how the work of two nonprofits having an interest in supporting all children, right? We have the same value of inclusivity in what we do at Free Arts. And so to have that represented at the symposium is really important to us. What is the mission of Big Brothers Big Sisters? What is it all about?
So our mission is creating a supportive one-to-one mentoring relationship that ignite the power and promise of all youth. So we believe as an agency that if you're working with youth, you're working with all youth. Whether you have it on your website that you are inclusive or LGBT friendly, the likelihood that LGBTQ youth is going to walk into your space is very high. So we just wanted to make sure that we stand by our values and our mission.
Absolutely. That makes sense, right? We're thinking about how we provide opportunities for every young person, every community here, and being expressive about that, creating a sense of belonging and welcomeness is an important part of that, isn't it? Kara, tell us about your background.
Hello, I'm Kara Kiggins, and I actually grew up in Chandler, Arizona, but I've lived away for about the last 12 years or so. I just moved back. So I feel like a newbie back in Arizona, but I moved back to raise my kids here. So I have a background working with survivors of trauma, first with refugees who've survived war and torture, both here in the States and abroad in Cairo, Egypt. And then for a while in San Diego, California, I was working with survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, and so running Rape Crisis Center and victim advocacy programming there. And that's where I learned, you'd think I would have learned some trauma-informed approaches working with refugees, but I didn't. It wasn't until I was working with survivors of sexual and gender-based violence that I was trained and learned in a lot more trauma-informed practices. And it's just a sad reminder that there's a lot of people working with survivors of trauma who aren't really fully equipped to be doing so. So that was my work there. And then for a few years, I was a birth doula and a childbirth educator, and it's still a passion of mine. I joined Gabriel's Angels quite recently. It's been about a month and a half as the Chief Programs Officer, and I'm here to really build upon our cool programs and give them some structure and kind of some updates here and there, and then ensure that we're all equipped to work with survivors of trauma.
Excellent goals. Welcome back. We could always
Thank
use
you.
more help in this
Thank
space.
you.
I'm sure with 12 years difference, like Valley looks bigger and
Wildly different.
Yeah. There's
I mean, it's a different place. When I grew up in Chandler, it was like the sheep would be there in the winter, and it was cornfields in the summer, and now it's Home Depots and Lowe's. So.
We had sheep in Chandler.
Oh yeah, they would bring it down. I know nobody believes this. They would bring it down from northern Arizona to winter in Chandler in the fields that weren't growing anything.
Wow.
And I loved it as a kid.
Yeah, Chandler's an interesting community where there's like new build, and then you'll get down to Main Street and there Arizona Avenue, and there's these homes been there decades and decades and decades. So
My dad was actually a dentist in downtown Chandler, and I grew up working in his dental office. So you would have seen 12-year-old me saying, "Hi, this is Dr. Steiner's office. Kara speaking."
I thought I've heard that before. So that reminds me to tell our audience, right? Our symposium is April 20th in Phoenix at the Desert Willow Conference Center, which is conveniently near the airport. So we'd love to have you if you live in the Valley. We'd love to have you if you live in the state, or if you want to make the trek to see us. We can't make it too much more convenient than that. So come April in Phoenix, pretty nice time to visit. So that's another thing in your favor there. Tell us about Gabriel's Angels, Kate.
Our mission statement, and I'll unpack it in a second, is through the life-changing power of pet therapy, Gabriel's Angels enhances the social and emotional development of vulnerable children. And the first part of that is life-changing impacts of pet therapy. We use pet therapy in all of our programming as the main part of our work, enhancing social and emotional development. So this looks like life skills. This looks like our core behaviors of confidence, empathy, attachment. And to unpack another part of our mission statement is vulnerable children. And for us, this means kids who've gone through some sort of adverse childhood experience, so some sort of trauma in their lives, ACEs, and really trying to target our programming to really fine tune into kids who have experienced something like that and are also in low-income schools and low-income areas. So we're really trying to define where our resources can go to have the most impact.
Sounds wonderful. And as we were getting prepared for this, you talked about we could have brought a pet team. And it's
I know
how easy it is, right? Animals steal the show. So
it's great.
In some ways, part of me is like, I'm glad to have them, and I'm also like, well, it's hard to get the audience back once they see the puppies.
It's so true, but that's the beauty of animals is they cut through all the BS and all the pretense that we humans have, and our cultural expectations, and what is proper and what is culturally proprietary. What is the proper way to be a human in this moment? And the animals just get people laughing or giggling, or sometimes their breath stinks and then we're laughing about stinky dog breath. But for kids, this is a great way to cut through it all, and adults too. I won't name names, but we just had a fancy donor event where we had some donors come to our office. And we can edit out the story if it's not appropriate. But it was all a bunch of fancy donors, and we all were sitting very proper and talking about impact statements and finances and really on our best behavior. And we had brought a team with us, and we had this gorgeous, plump bulldog named Ollie who was in the corner the whole time farting. And he just was stinking. It was a conference room like this, and he stunk it up. And so all of us started laughing. And this is just a bunch of adults. But it just cuts through this stuff. You're laughing, you're all human, and you're all trying to connect and relate to one another and do good in the world.
The dog's keeping it real.
And the dog did it. The dog keeps it real.
They're very unpredictable, but they're
so
unapologetically themselves.
Yes.
Because I've had instances where we're having a family picture, and we've had a dog just come in front of the picture out of nowhere and just do their business and then leave. And I'm like, really? Talk about timing.
Yes. And they're not worrying about how that picture's going to look later, and they're not worrying about what happened that morning. They're just in the moment.
So that's an excellent level of what we expect around having that openness to being yourself, and how animals can unlock that for people. We will have pet teams at the symposium.
100%.
Tell us
I feel
about
like
the
that's
pet
the
teams.
biggest draw.
Yeah.
So all the pet teams are what we're going to have at the symposium. I guess I can talk about a I went to a visit yesterday that I particularly loved that I got to shadow, and it was down at a junior high in Chandler, which was fun to go back, having grown up there. And we have a program down there called CAPE, and I could change to the page that reminds me what that acronym is. I can't remember. But basically, it's our social emotional group sessions. It's every other week for about 6 months, but it's targeted towards junior high aged kids, so a little bit older age group. And I was able to see there was a team down there. It was a little Sheltie named Rocky and his handler, and the handler's name is Jenny, but we laugh at how once you're a pet therapy team, you get known by your pet's names. So I've walked around these schools with these dogs, and the kids are shouting, "Hi, Teddy. Hi, Tiana. Hi, Rocky." Nobody knows the handler's name, but they all know the dog's name because they've all had if they've had some sort of programming. But our teams are volunteer handlers with their certified registered pet therapy animals. And they go to various locations throughout the valley. This includes schools, like the one I mentioned yesterday. We also do work in crisis shelters, domestic violence shelters, some after-school programming. And we either have our ABC programming, which is to help reading for first, second, and third graders. And this is the idea of that if by third grade, student is still behind in reading, it's going to impact their schooling, the statistics show, for the rest of their school years. But then and that's a reading program, one-on-one, but these group programs with social emotional learning, we have our core behaviors of affiliation, confidence, empathy, healthy attachments, respect, self-regulation, and tolerance. And so we craft these sessions around these concepts in child-friendly terms and have activities with the dog, activities with the handler around these themes for the course of about 6 months. And so there's the high school program, and then also we do that at the elementary school level, and we're starting to expand into high school. It has to look a little different for high schoolers, but we are starting to dream up ways we can also start to address some of these troubling suicide rates in the high school population with some of these pet therapy programs.
Yeah, it sounds like awesome work where a creative approach is required, where it's been difficult. And we understand there are a lot of circumstances that cause people to feel like, I can't open up to others. I need to be safe.
Yep.
I need to guard my environment. I can't trust anyone. And yet a puppy breaks the ice.
For sure.
Right? So that's a great thing.
And also creates the sense of how my energy and my demeanor and my facial expression and my hard eyes or soft eyes, my breath is slow or fast, and how that's impacting the dog. So our pet therapy teams are amazing. They're not going to the dogs aren't going to react poorly to aggression or quick movements, but kids rushing in with all that energy, the dog may back away from that a little bit. And so we can say, oh, you can see Rocky was a little bit unsure with that. Your eyes are a little bit stiff, your face is anxious, your breathing is fast, and you moved really quickly. What would it feel like to slow our breathing, to make our hands gentle, and to soften around our eyes, and then to kind of co-regulate with Rocky? Oh, do you see how Rocky's leaning into your body now, and the both of you are co-regulating? And it's just this vehicle. There's no judgment there. Rocky's not judging. He's just responding. The handler in there isn't judging. The handler's just saying, oh, Rocky's kind of freaked out by you. We're not going to say it like that, but, in child-friendly language. And then all of a sudden you've got this moment of all of us co-regulating, and me just shadowing in the corner, like relaxing and softening my old body. Yes.
Letting the dog do all the work.
And I'm just sitting in the corner watching this happen.
Well, we're just tapping into what we're wired to do, right? The science is very clear about when you look into your animal's eyes, you're both getting a nice dopamine rush of connection,
sure.
Oxytocin, all those things are happening. We've been wired to do this. And so tapping into that's really powerful.
Yeah.
Because creativity is part of our symposium, we welcome kind of some out-of-the-box thinking, right? There are a lot of ways to go about mentoring, and we're not here to judge or rank them. It can go from career, it could be sports-oriented, but in your particular workshop, it's called Mentoring Beyond the Human. So what are people going to learn when they attend that?
Talk about creativity. It's a different species, right? I know I was comparing our symposium topic to some of the other really exciting symposium topics that are going to be coming up. Will you remind me what your actual question was, Matt?
Yeah, what will people experience at Mentoring Beyond the Human?
Yeah, in our symposium in Mentoring Beyond the Human, we're going to have a couple of guests come with us, including, I can promise there will be dogs there, pet therapy teams. One of the pet therapy teams we're really excited is going to be joining us is Dr. Annette Bowers. She's a retired veterinarian, so she has that skill set. She also has this amazing golden retriever dog named Finley. Finley just came to our office the other day and just made our day. Just this really sweet, intuitive dog. And then we're also bringing along Kelly Stark. She's a school psychologist at the Mesquite Elementary School, and she's been a huge supporter of our programming with Dr. Annette Bauer and Finley in that school situation, or in that school scenario. So they are going to come together to talk about the ways that pet therapy can impact kids. And we from Gabriel's Angels will be there too, but Annette and Finley will take the show probably.
Yes, that will be awesome. So we're looking forward to that, and we'll switch back over to you, Eva. I'd like to know a bit more about what Big Brothers Big Sisters does, how they approach mentoring, and I know that probably has several different types and categories. Tell us more about that.
So Big Brothers Big Sisters as an agency as a whole has been around for over 100 years. So with 100 years in the industry, we've learned to adapt and evolve and grow depending on the needs of the community. So we primarily work on one-on-one mentorships, but that can look so many different ways now. So we do couples matches where we'll pair a little, and usually our littles are kids between the ages of 6 to 18, with a volunteer or trusted adult. So couples, we also do family matches where a family will be assigned to a little. We have community-based programming where they go out 2 to 4 times a month. Yeah, did I say that right? 2 to 4 times a month. Out into the community and do things like go to the movies, go to a sporting event, help with homework. We found out that having one trusting adult in your life really creates so much possibility and helps you just achieve your full potential. So with the LGBT community, we've also recognized that not all children have LGBTQ parents. And so some parents just need that additional support, specifically around their child's identity. So building community and finding those people to work with our kids. So we're constantly adapting to change and constantly growing to see how we can meet the needs of our littles or our children.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. And people are very fond of that program. There are people who talk about bigs and littles, years, decades, as past experiences. Some that continue on. Everyone's an adult now, and they still stay in touch. So that's a really powerful model that has had a lot of impact on the community. I'm wondering if you could tell us about the workshop you're going to be delivering.
Yes. So my workshop is basically self-discovery, a journey through self-discovery inspired by the LGBTQ community. So the workshop essentially is going to allow people to just slow down and stop. So I feel like, from the moment we're born, we're constantly being told how to look, how to dress. We're given our names. We don't even get a choice in our names, let alone other choices in life. So when working with kids, we recognize that, as a child, we're constantly asking questions. We're so curious. And for the most part, some parents allow a child to just explore and be creative. But then somewhere along the lines, we kind of stop, because we're afraid to explore because of the narrative that has been told or been given to us. So this workshop essentially allows adults to just stop, and reflect on your journey and how you got here. Kind of shatter those limiting beliefs that you grew up with. So that's essentially the workshop in a nutshell.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. It's related to other themes that are being presented, right? Of becoming aware of what kinds of expectations exist of you, for you. You were mentioning even down to your name, right? We don't get a choice there.
And that's such a big part of your identity, It's so I feel like sometimes, some people don't associate or connect with their name, regardless of what it is. And so with working with the LGBTQ community and the kids, and just seeing the power that they have when they get to pick their names. So I remember there was a time I was working at the youth center, and there was 5 kids, all adopted, and all 5 kids had the best names ever. One of them was, I probably shouldn't say their names, but their names were just amazing. And I asked them, your parents, how did they come up with the names? And the kid said, well, our parents let us pick our names. And that concept just like stuck with me. I'm like, what do you mean your parents? You know, as a child, your parents mostly make all the decisions for a kid, you know? So having a child be self-empowered to be like, you know what, this is who I am. When I work with kids specifically, I always ask them, like, you tell me who you are, you know? It's like whatever name you want to use, whatever pronouns you want to use. And it just feels like that gives them the power to be themselves. I personally have two littles that I mentor myself, and I've been matched with them, one for 5 years and the other one for about 7 months.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine the power that exists when you're able to really share who you are, and then you're accepted at the same time. And that's the beauty of that mentorship. We want that in all relationships, but it's harder for some than others, right? And helping adults understand whatever experience they've had with fitting in when they didn't want to or feel like it, that can be humbling and perhaps create some empathy to help young people who are processing that and growing up and thinking about what their peers want, what their parents want, and what am I going to do with my life, and all those important questions. And they're still young, and life doesn't come with the answer book, right?
Well, I feel like it's more one of those, you need permission to exist or permission to take up space. And what I love about pets is like pets you don't need their permission to be there, you know? And so as adults, I feel like we're constantly looking for validation or looking for approval, whether it's our parents, our coworkers, you know, and we walk around life afraid to make a mistake because we've been reprimanded for making mistakes. So one of the things I've noticed with our mentors, the mentors that have the biggest impacts are the mentors who have a good understanding of who they are. And, you know, with the LGBT community, I feel like they're constantly changing that mold, you know, like they're constantly redefining what gay, lesbian, bi looks like. And in the straight community, it's just straight. And so I'm going to challenge all of my hetero community to question, like, what does that look like to you? What does being straight look like to you? It can come in different flavors and it can look different ways. It doesn't have to be just one thing.
Yeah, related topics coming out in other workshops because I'll talk about it in a separate episode of the hype, but like I'm approaching similar topics with how we have some gender codes about who's allowed to be emotional about what.
Yeah.
And how that's actually destructive to people, right? We coach down as a society what we're allowed to say and feel, and we're all born with the same capabilities, and then we can't figure out why, you know, substance abuse rates are through the roof, self-harm, all these things are societal factors we have to encounter, and yet we've built in some systems here that really kind of break people away from the essential parts of their humanity. And can we in mentoring relationships understand them? So these are beautiful concepts that will have, I think, an opportunity to really change and open up the viewpoints of your mentor who comes. And while I'm thinking about it, we want the symposium to be for anyone working with young people. So you could be in sports, you could be a teacher, you could be a counselor, you can have any of these roles in which you are having that influence. And we'd love for you to join one of our agencies too, right? There's no limit on that. If that's something that you want. But this really is for everyone that's working with other people, because I think one of the other true sayings about mentoring is that it changes two lives, right? Assuming it's a one-to-one match, that the mentor gains from this too. We're not wired to be alone, and those things are helpful outputs of mentoring itself. So I have a couple questions for us, both of you, as we're kind of winding up here. So the theme for the symposium is inspiring creativity and mentoring. How does your agency model that? And we'll start with you, Eva.
Well, by constantly adapting to how we run program, looking at what the need is. You know, like I said, we started off primarily working with one-on-one, but we recognize that mentoring looks different for everybody. So with our queer community, we have littles and bigs, using gender-neutral pronouns, just acknowledging that self-expression and gender identity and sexuality are all different. So when we now pair our bigs and littles in our queer community, we look at their needs and what it is that they're overall goal is. I have so many wonderful stories of all the matches that I've seen grow and evolve. Like I have my little specifically that I've been matched for 5 years now. She's 16 years old now and in college and high school, dual enrolled. And, I see a great future ahead of her. So we're constantly reinventing or looking at how things can be, but then also relying on partner agencies and forming those partnerships, because one of the things I tell parents, it takes a village to raise a child. And we provide support to the matches, but we also provide support to the families. We recognize that the kids need additional support when they go home, so we're there to help the families as well.
Excellent. How about you, Carol?
Creativity in our programming. I think what we end up with are a lot of personalities in the room whenever we're doing our programming. You've got the handler's personality, you've got the dog's personality, and you've got whoever the kiddos are that happen to be in the programming that day. And so at the minute by minute, I am constantly witnessing creativity in how we just deliver our programming based on what's coming up in the dog that day, the kid that day, and the handler maybe, but usually it's the dog and the kid that are giving us the most opportunity for creativity. We can say it that way. We also are really thinking big about partnership and who we're partnering with in the community, the schools we're partnering with, the school counselors, social workers. It's often school counselors and social workers, and sometimes we have a teacher in particular that wants our services. So how do we meet those needs? How do we decide which schools to go in? Unfortunately, we have a wait list, so trying to prioritize the schools that are maybe have less resources than others, or in a less resourced area, or have a student population that are less resourced. And then also thinking about all these other organizations in the Phoenix area, and we're in Tucson as well. I forgot to mention that. We're in Tucson as well. So in Phoenix and in Tucson, there are so many really creative agencies that are serving populations of students and children who have gone through really hard stuff. And it seems like everywhere I look, there's some sort of creative try to really meet the needs of our kids who are struggling. They're struggling for a lot of different reasons. And anytime we can partner with a new kind of organization and bring our pet therapy teams and programming into their space with the kiddos that are already in that place, it's just a way that we can think. We don't have to have our programming look purely boxed in. We need structure. That's partly why I'm here, is to build in some structure. But being creative within that, alongside the partners who just everywhere I look, there's just something really cool that somebody's doing.
We started a pet policy at work so we can bring our pets to the office, which I do have a little bias, like the best dog ever.
Your dog is the best
yes,
dog ever?
The best dog ever. His name is Sebastian. He's 4 pounds. I almost brought him, but I wasn't sure what your guys' pet policy was.
Get certified as a pet therapy team, and then you can do that in your work.
So I looked into
So
that.
this is how partnership grows.
Yeah, no, I know.
By the end of this episode, we'll have a new program.
I had this conversation with Sebastian specifically. I'm like, I feel like I need to get you a part-time job or find you a purpose outside of the house, because all you do is sleep and you're sleeping your life away. So I looked into Gabriel's Angels, but I have to be with him when he's out and about, correct? I just can't drop him off, clock him in, clock him out.
You have to be with
You're the team.
I know.
I know.
So a couple last things. In your opinion, why should someone come to the symposium?
One, to slow down. I feel like we're constantly on this wheel and going, go, 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 trying to figure it out. One of my favorites quotes says, "You're under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago." And we're constantly, feel this pressure of I have to be and do. So for the symposium is just one, be creative and slow down, reflect on yourself and grow from it.
Love it. How about you, Kara?
Just this conversation about creativity has me feeling inspired, and hearing the way you are talking, Ava is talking about the work being done in your programs, and hearing even just the questions you're asking, Matt. It's such a cool opportunity to think creatively and to be inspired. And I think that's what the draw of this symposium will be, because just reading, I have it in front of me, just reading some of the summaries of the talks that are going to be there, hearing what you have to say, it has me thinking, can we look at this a different way? And that kind of energy is going to be created probably tenfold or hundredfold, so let's math it, at the symposium the day of. So
Sounds good. Now, one last thing that we try to get all our guests to do, bringing up the wheel. This says World of Fun, but for us, it's of values. And so on this are different statements that are true about why people are involved at Free Arts, which we kind of consider everybody to be involved in free arts. So this is how it works. You spin it, you get one of these, and we're going to ask you how that has been something true in your life. So, Kara, you want to go first?
Okay.
So what's a time that you've needed safety to either approach the next thing in your life, perhaps something in your work?
Yeah.
How has that been an important thing for you?
The work I was doing in San Diego with survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, I was surrounded all day, every day by hundreds, well, not every day, but over the course of the year, 1,000 survivors who had been unsafe. They had experienced some of these extreme moments of a lack of safety and the ramifications of what it feels like to have your safety violated, and then to also question what it feels like to be safe. And we were talking constantly, words like safety planning, words like how can you be safe this evening? And that was in my day-to-day life. And it got to a point where I was thinking, well, what does safety look like in my life? Because when you're surrounded by that, it kind of can seep into you. And so I started thinking about how can I seek safety in my personal life so that when I can go into my professional life, I kind of exude that sense of safety to the people I work with. It's kind of a woo or kind of a nebulous concept, but I was really thinking, how can I have safety in my life and be a safe person in order to exude that in my work versus having continued lack of safety at home and lack of safety and anxiety, and then I'm not doing my best work. And so I really started to think about what creates safety and safe practices for me in my personal life. Do you think I should detail those things or?
No, this is excellent.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a great answer off the cuff for safety. And it fits our definition of it too, because we don't believe we can go very far at Free Arts until people have a sense that their environment is safe and that they can take the risk of a healthy risk, right? Of working with another person that we vetted and trained, but there's risk there. You don't know this person in a blue Free Arts shirt that's a mentor or the versions of adult, mentoring that you all have. So I love it very much. Eva, how about a spin? Oh, as I clunk the microphone, rule number 1 on podcasting, don't hit the mic. Strength. When has there been a moment for you where you've had to embody this in your work?
I feel like just questioning everything. It's like I feel like we live in a society where it's frowned upon to question everything. At such an early age, all the way from your academics to religious institutions, politics. The second you start questioning things, you feel bad for even questioning. So I feel like it takes a lot of strength to just ask questions. I remember someone asked me about my sexuality and my gender and when did I discover, and I told them, well, I'm still questioning. So, I feel like, we're constantly evolving, and sexuality and gender for me is all on a spectrum. And I feel like I should be able to navigate however I want and not be stuck in one place. So it takes a lot of strength just to even say that, to be like, I'm going to change my name tomorrow, and that's okay. I'm going to change my appearance. I'm going to shave my head. That takes a lot of strength. So yes.
Yeah, we welcome that exhibition of strength, because there are definitely people in our environment that change their appearance and use self-expression. And there is joy in stepping out, but there's a little bit of nervousness and sometimes risk too. So I can see how that would be an amazing example of strength. So thank you both for sharing that. So this is Symposium Hype 1 with our guests, Kara Kiggins from Gabriel's Angels and Eva Seiler from Big Brothers Big Sisters. We thank you so much for being here. You will have the chance to hear from them both, see them both at the symposium, among with volunteers from their agencies. So we thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it, and we'll see you all on April 20th.
Sounds great.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Canvas of the Heart. We'd love to hear your questions and feedback by email at hello@freeartsaz.org. You can find more information about Free Arts by visiting our website at freeartsaz.org. We'd like to thank the many individual and corporate donors and the hundreds of volunteers that make Free Arts programs possible. Take care, and we will talk to you soon.